Robert Larson. I'm interviewing Ralph Severson for the Stake Archives.
I was born in Oakland. I was called the stake president in 1997. Max Caldwell, remember the 70, called me to be the stake president. The first thing that always strikes you, I think, at least it struck me, was, how am I going to do this? So it was really a scramble at the beginning. But I had two very good counselors who were both experienced. And I've always had an overriding interest in family history, which is another story altogether. And so family history and temple were the other thrust of what I was anxious to see done. I had to contemplate who my counselors would be. And it was actually a relatively easy decision, because even though I had not anticipated this call, when I was called, I just kind of knew already who my counselors should be. So we sat there and thought about it and talked about it. And Sue was my counselor in the whole decision, and we ended up calling Dean Criddle as my first counselor, who is currently serving as the stake president, and my second counselor was Nathan Bell, my own bishop at the time. Our goal was to add 2 more units, one for Chinese-speaking members, which we ultimately did. There had been a Chinese branch earlier that had been dissolved. We knew that there was a lot of Chinese interest in the gospel, but no place to go to church, and so we wanted to have a Chinese branch, which has turned out to be very successful. And we wanted to see the Oakland 9th unit, which at that time had been transferred into the San Leandro stake, transferred back into our stake, and for it to become a ward. That's our inner city unit. I had been told when I was called that I should never give a talk anywhere in the stake without talking about the temple. To me, that meant talking about family history and temple, not just temple, because they're so tied together. From the time I was serving as bishop through the end of my tenure stake president, President Hinckley, I got a call. I was just driving home from work and I just came in the house. My daughter Melissa said, "Dad, there's somebody on the phone from Salt Lake." I said, "Oh, okay." So I came in and I said, "Hello," and he said, "Bishop?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "This is Gordon Hinckley in Salt Lake." Didn't say President Hinckley, he said Gordon Hinckley. He was at the time a counselor in the first presidency, but not the president of the church. Just like talking to your next door neighbor. Just absolutely no airs, just chatted with me. He said, over the years I've been good friends with Steve and Georgia White, and we want to see who you'd like to have come down for the funeral service. So if you'd call Georgia and ask her, she said, "I'd be happy to come." She said, "It'd be very hard for me because I'm right now." He was basically the whole first presidency because the others were incapacitated. So he said, "I could come down," but he said, "If they have another choice, we'd be happy to have that person come." So I called Georgia back and talked to her, and she said, "Well, the one that I'd most like would be Dallin Oaks, because he was Steve's missionary companion back in Chicago." So I called President Hinckley's office back and got him, and didn't mean to. I just meant to relay a message, but so he's jovial. "Bishop, how you doing? How's Georgia doing?" Kind of thing. And so I said, "Dallin Oaks is the man," and he said, "Great, we'll have him down there. When's the funeral service going to be?" And so Elder Oaks was presiding at the funeral, which I conducted, but he presided. So President Hinckley was my hero. Also all the various things that he developed vis-a-vis the temple and the number of temples, and also his focus on family history, which is why we have the new program right now, New Family Search, is really his brainchild. So yes, President Hinckley is my man. I think the ones that have been the most meaningful to me over the years are various parts of D&C 121, about how one should serve, and the fact that having the priesthood does not entitle one to be in any way a dictator. And I thought those were amazingly insightful words from the prophet Joseph Smith. So D&C 121, really the whole thing. A quick capsule on Sue. She, like I said, is a Southern belle from Louisiana, and very shy when we first got acquainted, and in fact was shy for the first 5 or 7 years of our marriage, but then gradually, because of church callings primarily, became much more outgoing. She became the primary president and did a very good job in that frame. And then she's always been very much of our kids call their mother a crusader. When she sees a cause where something needs to be done, she jumps into it. And then ran for city council and is currently the mayor of Orinda. So she's had this shy flower from Louisiana has all of a sudden become a very outspoken sort of public figure in our town. It's a great relief to be able to be in this town Sue's husband rather than somebody on my own. Mm-hmm. We have 5 children, ranging in age currently from 37, Amy, down to 19, Kellen. We have 1 boy and 4 girls. All fathers are proud of their children. I am too. I think they're all very accomplished. And we have 13 grandchildren now, and growing in every year just about. Well, I've personally had a number of experiences related to family history that I consider to be miracles. And so on 2 different occasions I've had what I consider to be miraculous findings in family history that were all done for me 100 or 200 or 300 years ago by somebody else that I've benefited from. And I believe those people were inspired somehow to do that for a purpose that really relates to me and my family. Have I seen anyone raised from the dead? No. But I've seen lots of things that I would consider to be strong intercessions by the Lord in situations. And so yes, I'm a big believer that if we ask and if it's necessary, that it will happen. One situation in which I felt very strongly inspired to do something that was non-traditional and was not favored by others was that 7 years into our service as a stake presidency, I released my first counselor, Dean Criddle. Counselors are supposed to serve with you your whole time in the stake presidency. So we released Dean, ostensibly to call him as the bishop of the East Base of the University Ward, the Oakland Berkeley University Ward, which he did serve in. But the real reason that I did that was because I knew he was to be my successor. That had been impressed on me in many ways. When I was released by Elder Russell M. Nelson, he had asked me to set up interviews with all kinds of people his office had, and I had set up 30 interviews. We got there on Saturday morning, and he said, "Who's first?" And I said, "Dean Criddle." And he said, "Why is he first?" I said, "Because he's my successor." And so he interviewed him, and he came out of the interview and he said, "Call the others and tell them not to come."
That's interesting.
Yeah. So the Lord gets the person he wants in those positions, and sometimes it's by unusual or circuitous paths, but I was very happy that I'd had that inspiration earlier to release him so that he could be in the position to serve. I enjoyed my service as stake president. I enjoyed my service as bishop. I'm enjoying my release. I'm serving right now as a Northern California family history advisor, and that's a great calling. Free to travel throughout the area, 3 temple districts, and instruct people on family history and on the temple, and it's great. So I love it. No, I've had a really enjoyable time and a very, very spiritually uplifting time throughout my service, and I would there's always things you could have done better, but I wouldn't change the overall outcome of the times that I've spent there.